You are an amazing alum. Amber, welcome to this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
Could you talk a little about your journey from really the beginning of being interested in VC to right now at Mendoza Ventures?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the best place to start is just to give you a little background about me. So I kind of fell into the world of VC, as I like to say. My academic background is in neuroscience. I went to UMass Amherst, got a neuroscience degree. Early in my career, decided I wanted to pursue health and wellness. Worked in the health and wellness industry for 10 years. In my last role, I was a sales and operations manager for a fitness brand called the HealthWorks Group. So I helped run sales teams, I helped with operations of multi departments, and decided about 4 years into that role that I wanted to pursue something different. And what's the best way to pursue something different than to go back to school? And so I knew I wanted to change, but I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. Brand and brand strategy had always been super interesting to me. So I wanted to go back to get my MBA. Through my MBA program at Babson, I declared a marketing concentration, really dug into the ins and outs of marketing operations, marketing analytics, wanted to pursue something or thought I wanted to pursue something on the brand end. And then through that experience and kind of a testament to the power of a network, one of the things that I made sure everyone knew during my journey in business school was, hey, I'm pursuing an MBA at this really amazing school. And I wanted everyone to know it because I knew that closed mouths don't get fed. So I was just like, if I put it into the ether, things will come to me. And that's exactly what happened. One of my neighbors in my building is an executive director for an after school program. And the board president of this after school program happened to be the GP of Mendoza Ventures. And my friend was just like, my neighbor said, hey, our HOA president is in business school. She's at Babson. She's getting an MBA. I know that you work really closely with MBA students. You two should meet. So we got in touch via email. She invited me to her end of year gala for the fund. I went to a party where I knew absolutely no one. It was founders, a bunch of LPs, and I just worked the room. I spoke to her. We bonded because she also went to UMass undergrad. So again, the power of that network. And she invited me into the office the next week for coffee. So I went in. She told me all about the fellowship program that her and the other GP, her partner, run. And I had heard about the program through other folks at Babson who had applied and not gotten this fellowship. And she mentioned, she was like, yeah, it's a very tough fellowship. It is very competitive, but I see something in you and I want you to do this fellowship. Would you want to do the fellowship? And I said, absolutely. When can I start? So I think that really is a testament to the power of your network and making sure that people know what it is that you're doing and what you're working on, because that was a door that was open for me. And that was really my foray into the world of venture.
And really, that is the most important part is that although you have your strengths and what you're good at, and also even like the name brands, like your university is your name brand as well, you've got to leverage them. You really got to tell everyone, say like, hey, I'm in this university that's really focused on entrepreneurship and I want to do something that's around that. And, venture capital is one of those things. So you also mentioned like they not only you leveraging your connections, but at the same time, they chose you over other people. So who is VC for and who is it not for?
Yeah, so that's actually a really interesting question. So going to Babson, if you know a little bit about Babson, it's especially their MBA program. It's the number one MBA program for entrepreneurship. So Babson is really a breeding ground of founders. And it's a really inspiring community to be in because you have folks who are so passionate about what they're building. And on the other end of that, you have folks who are founders and also folks who are passionate about helping those founders, see those visions come to fruition through VC. But it's really interesting, you saying who is it for and who it's not. One of the things that I've seen, especially in Boston and in the greater landscape, is that VC is very exclusionary. And I don't know if that's by design, but even thinking about myself as like a Black woman allocator, there are within the VC landscape less than 2% of Black women are allocators. So when we think about like who VC is for and who it's not, it should be for everyone, right? Like the capital stack should look like our population. And one of the things that I get really excited about is being able to extend that opportunity to others the way that that opportunity was extended to me.
Yeah. And 2%, like just imagine that, like how really exclusive that is, where it's like, unless you even have any capital, unless you actually have tons and tons of deal flow, unless you actually have all those connections and resources, how on earth will you actually do it? So in
Yeah.
terms of like Babson, I guess like for all the MBAs watching, what are truly the resources in a university like Babson or other universities that MBAs can leverage to break into VC?
Babson does a really, really great job of supporting their entrepreneurs and their founders, and they also do so. In my case, they do so through academia. So I was actually able to take a couple courses at Babson for my MBA program that focused specifically on VC, private equity, how to get funded, how to raise capital. Those are all electives that you can take in the MBA program. And a ton of folks that do the MBA at Babson have a concentration in entrepreneurship. So it's a really, really valuable way to not only have the resources to build something, but also know how to get funding, know what to look for in building a team, knowing when to scale and knowing when to, either figure out a time to exit or decide to pivot to something else. So for me, I was really, really thankful that I was able to, take the VC PE class so that I could really learn. And that was something that helped me within my VC fellowship.
Yeah, you mentioned courses, and that's one of the most important things is that you actually gotta learn something to understand if it's actually for you. So how about other than I guess like what universities kind of provide for MBAs in terms of learning? Like, is there also like obscure stuff like accelerator within the university, or maybe like some entrepreneurship center within university, or even like a VC group clubs? Like, what type of stuff that are I guess like something that MBAs usually don't really know that are resources in a university that they can leverage?
As a university, one of the things that we do really well at Babson is pitch competitions. We have one really big competition every year, the Rocket Pitch competition. That one, I believe, has a check on the line. So that's one thing that they do really well. There's also the beta challenge. I think actually that's the Rocket Pitch doesn't have a cash prize, but the beta challenge does have a cash prize. And then different affinity groups will do pitch challenges. Like I was the VP of marketing for the Black Graduate Club while I was at Babson. And one of the things that we did is we put on a Zest for Africa challenge. And it was something that we did at one of our conferences that was being held at Babson. And it was an opportunity for us to highlight businesses from the African diaspora. And really, speaking of, access to capital, being able to highlight and showcase some of those founders and give them the opportunity to get funding for their projects. And one of the winners this past year was this amazing founder who had a beauty brand. And she leveraged waste from cocoa beans to make beauty products. And it was just a really amazing opportunity to see her vision and for her to convey it to the other folks in the room. And there was so much energy in the room. And it was a really, really great time. But yeah, there's a entrepreneurial center at Babson. I feel like we're just so spoiled given that Babson really, really invests in the future of their entrepreneurs. So they really have anything that you could possibly need to get your business up and running off the ground from, idea to launch. I actually was speaking with a former fellow, Mendoza fellow, who also went to Babson. And her whole reason for choosing Babson was because she wanted to launch a venture. And she said, I'm just going to go back to school, launch this venture. If I succeed, that's great. I've successfully launched a venture. And if I don't, worst case scenario, I walk away with an MBA. And one of the things that she said, it was a very humbling experience because she got the opportunity to try and her words, fail miserably. But it was actually her foray into venture. And she was actually able to, after her fellowship, secure an allocator role back in her home country, which was really cool. It's always a fun, cool success story.
Especially when you're in college, there's not really a risk to do anything at all, right? Like you're
Yeah,
learning from your classes, maybe you do part-time work or something, but then other than that, it's really just like chilling with your friends and also just like springing up projects. And these projects could become like your startup in the future, where if you just graduate, you don't really have to be employed by anyone anymore because you will have your own business. Or on the bright side, you can just have your MBA degree at Babson, which is
right.
awesome. So for a VC, really looking at deals every day and you meeting all those founders, what are the top three things that you look for in a startup when you're considering whether or not to invest?
Yeah, so at Mendoza, we do invest in early stage. So we do look for a certain amount of things from founders that we're investing in. So we're looking for a solid go-to-market strategy. We're looking for an established customer base. So the companies that we invest in have to have at least $1 million of repeatable revenue. So that's one of the main things that we do. That's one of our criteria for investment. But one of the main things that I did as during my fellowship at Mendoza was we managed the inbound pipe. And given the nature of the fund, it was very, very robust, which was really great because we got so many great founders who wanted us to invest in them. But one of the things that I'm looking for is the founder in the team. Do they have the background? Do they have the credibility? The domain expertise, any complementary skill sets. I think the other big one is a defensible moat. You'll see sometimes these founders who have, they might have like they can get to an MVP, but we want to know what is going to make that company hard to copy. Is it their proprietary tech? Is it, do they have distribution advantage? Like, what is it that is going to make it hard for others to repeat? And then I mentioned we're looking for a solid go-to-market strategy. We're looking for that solid customer base because we want to make sure that anything that's coming in is repeatable. It is a rinse and repeat, and we can continue to see that grow.
Yeah. And especially when you're already seeing like the startups that already have traction, you would want to make sure that they have a moat. And if they
Right.
don't, like people can just like copy that. And then it's like, what do you do? Right. Because most of them has like 10 or even more competitors, but copying could be a hard thing or it could be a really easy thing. So that's a very, very tough due diligence process that you actually have to do on a typical day. So
Yeah.
what do you do like a typical day as an investor? Talk like 9 a.m., I do this, and then all the way to 5 p.m., whatever.
Yeah. So I think for each fellow, it looks a little bit different. The one really cool thing about the Mendoza Fellowship is that you're usually in a cohort, and the cohort is designed to have different folks with different skill sets to complement one another. So for me, being so new to the world of VC, the first thing that I did every morning when I came into the office was I blocked off my calendar for about 30 minutes of what I call focus time. And I would just take that time to peruse Boston Business Journal, look at Wall Street Journal, look at anything that was happening in the news around tech, around, any of our verticals, AI, fintech, cybersecurity, just so that I could stay up to date with what was going on within those industries, starting to recognize trends in those industries, and really just taking the time to hone in on my skills as a future investor. Sometimes that looked like, reading 30 minutes of, venture deals or the lean startup or being tapped into the mind of an entrepreneur. So that was what, hands down, every morning, drinking my coffee, doing that for the first 30 minutes. But then every day looks a little bit different. Sometimes you come into the office. One of the cool things about having a physical office is that you never know who's going to come in. So I made it a point to be at the office as much as possible. Even to this day, I'll still come in, do my work. Sometimes you'll have LPs drop by. Sometimes there will be other investors who drop by. And for the fellows, it's a really great opportunity for us to expand our network and meet different folks. So for example, one day we had two founders come in and drop off flowers because they wanted to like make that introduction. And it was like a very sweet gesture. I got to talk to a founder for a little bit, and we ended up setting up a call to, talk more about what they were building. And then another thing that we're responsible for, as I mentioned, was that inbound pipes. I did spend a considerable amount of time talking to founders, looking at pitch decks, doing that market research, really being able to see the patterns with what is being built and like patterns in the market. And that was actually one of my favorite things to do because I get really excited to hear about the things that people are building and seeing them get excited about it. And then a lot of admin, like taking notes, updating our CRM. But it's really, you never know what you're going to get in the day of the office. Sometimes it's, an opportunity comes up where, let's say, our GPs get invited to speak at an event or get to do something cool, but they just don't have the bandwidth to do it or they're traveling. So they'll come out to the fellows area where we all sit and do our work. And they say, hey, MIT needs someone to come in to talk to their entrepreneurs about different venture firms in Boston. Do you want to go do it? So it's a really great way to meet founders, number one, also to get your face out there in the ecosystem, and also meet other investors. Or Another thing that would consist, or my day would consist of, is going into the ecosystem, meeting founders through pitch competitions, demo days, founders and funders, networking events. So, which is also something that's really fun for me. I'm a very extroverted person and I love to hear about people's stories and meet people. So, it could be a really casual networking event where you're downtown talking to founders over drinks, or sometimes it's a little bit more involved and a little bit more structured. One of the really cool things I've done recently was a putt and pitch event. So it was a group of founders and a group of investors, and we just played a couple of rounds of mini golf. And during those rounds of mini golf, the founders would tell us about what they were building. They would give us their pitch. We would give them feedback on their pitch. And at the end of the evening, once we were done our holes of putt putt, the founders spoke to the larger group and pitched their product, and it was a really fun time. And I also, perfected my short game.
That's actually so smart. Like for our audience, you should definitely like take this into account. Like putt and golf, like literally, that could be a really, really good game to play with founders and also investors, and it's fun. And the way that Amber really has done it is she kept those connections by being open, like being really open by being in office. Like, how about what else? As in, like, how do you really try to maintain relationships with those kind of more senior to you or people who are really, really busy? How do you maintain those types of relationships?
I am really lucky that our GPs make sure that we get in front of as many people as possible. So our GPs are making intros constantly to folks that they think would be good for us to know. Also, working at a fund, you have access to a lot of different LPs who, do work across different industries. So one of the things that I made sure to do, especially while you're still in school, is set up as many chats as possible. So I would reach out, and this, it would be internally with LPs. This would be with other investors from other funds. And I would just reach out to people that I would see on LinkedIn who I thought, had a role that was really interesting to me, people that I've never met, people on the other side of the coast. And I just say, hey, I'm an MBA student and I'm really interested in capital allocation as a career. Do you have a couple minutes to chat? And, you get a lot of silence, but you also get a lot of yeses. And I've been able to have really great conversations with really great people. And I think it helps too that while you're still in school, like you definitely want to do it while you're still in school because when you're a student, you're not really seen as I don't say as a threat, but no one thinks that you're coming for a job or about to ask for a job while you're in school. So people are more receptive, I think, to meet with you if you frame it as like, hey, I'm a student and I just really want to learn about this. But it can then turn into a connection later down the line where you are applying for roles. You can say, like, hey, thank you for all of your help. I am looking for work, or I see that there's this role that's open. Can you talk me through it? Or I'd love to chat more about it. So that's one thing that I think is really, really important. Also, finding your tribe. So, as I mentioned earlier, there is a huge, I guess, gap between what the allocators look like in the space. Like I mentioned, only 2% of Black women are capital allocators. So, another thing that I was able to do was to find affinity groups. So, I did become a member of Black VC, which is a collective of Black investors across the country with different chapters in different cities. I did get connected to Black women in BC, which is another affinity group. And I was able to not only attend the retreat that they had this summer in Martha's Vineyard, but I was also through that group able to meet other founders, meet other funders, and was able to actually host an event before the retreat with two other GPs of two different firms. And it was a really great way for us to bring together GPs and LPs and create like an environment for networking. So I think that that's also something that's super important and being able to tap into those affinity groups. And there's a bunch. Like I mentioned, Black VC is a really great one, a Black women in venture capital, VC Unleashed, which is another organization that's committed to uplifting and empowering underrepresented founders and funders. So I think finding your tribe and building relationships through those groups is also a really great way to, find mentorship, find folks who will open the door for you.
Yeah. And the thing that you mentioned about a student DMing people on LinkedIn, that's like so legit. Like I remember in the past, I think like 2 years ago, I basically just like left my year kind of blank because I was like, hey, I kind of want to look older than like everyone else, which like made more sense like with the achievements that I have. But then when people see that you have like achievements and they see the year that you're still just an undergraduate student, they're like, oh my gosh, like I would love to meet this person. And they would just like be so, so, so much more willing to do it. So this is 100% correct, like 1,000%. And then in terms
Absolutely.
of finding your community, right? Like a lot of people really underestimate finding their own community and just finding existing groups that are already there. Because using those, not only can you create your own community, like you can literally create a whole new network and just through those people who relate to you in some way. So after that step, after really having that meeting with those people, how do you keep in touch with them? Like, do you meet them every single month? Like, does that even work? Or how on earth do you stay in touch if it is, after meeting with a VC?
Yeah. So one of the things that I do is, like I mentioned, I go to a lot of events. The Boston ecosystem is, I won't say that it's small, but you run into the same people over and over again. So I always make it a commitment to, no matter how tired I am, no matter what I've got going on, I'm going to at least 2 events per week. And that's kind of where I, maintain those connections. And that's how you also build your network. And when people see you out and about, you're more likely to get invited to other things, or people will ask you to come speak, or people will ask you, to sit on a panel. One of the things, so I mentioned the putt and pitch. Once I did that, folks started inviting me to golfing events, and I'm not a golfer. I really enjoyed, putt putt. So I started getting invited to more investor golfing events to the point now where I'm like fully a golfing girly, which is super fun for me. And it's turned into something really cool where me and my investor friends, we, will go to the golf course, we'll take a half a day and, just mess around on the golf course. But then we say, like, what can we turn this into? Like, this is a really cool thing that we've kind of fell into. So now we're in the process, me and a couple of my investor friends are looking to put on events where folks can, who don't know how to golf, in underrepresented groups, and they can come, they can learn how to golf because it is such an important, I think it's a really important sport to learn if you are in the business world because so many deals are getting made on the golf course. So teaching people how to golf, having people find community in that way. So that's something really cool that I've been working on. But yeah, I would just say going to those events, being open, it can be really easy to go to events and, gravitate toward your friends that like your founder friends, your funder friends, and not talk to anyone else. But I always make it a point to talk to 3 new people when I go out and about. And also making sure that folks know what you're working on and know what you're up to. One of the really cool things about going to these events and talking to and maintaining those relationships with folks is that people want to help you. I'll run into an investor friend who might work for, a company or a fund that's hiring. And I'll say, like, yeah, like I am looking for a new role, or I'm looking to do X, or I'm looking for board leadership, or I'm looking for board observership. And I can't tell you how many interviews I've gotten because someone has made an intro. So, for example, the woman that I met through Black Women in VC, she knew that I was looking for work post graduation. So anything that she would see, she would send my way. She's like, "Does this look interesting to you? Do you want me to make an intro? I'm going to put you and the hiring manager on an email thread." Or, I have one investor friend who it's really funny. I go to sleep really early, so I'll just wake up to a text that was sent at like 1 a.m. She's like, "Hey, I saw this role. I think that this would be really great for you." And I'm just like looking at it through like half shut eyes in the morning. But it's things like that, being able to keep those relationships and also letting folks know what you're up to and what it is that you want and putting that into the universe.
And because you're telling them that, hey, I want this, I want to be in this. This is my mission. This is what I want to do. And that is when people start thinking like at the top of their mind, whenever they're meeting new people, or maybe even their existing friends, they're like, wait, my other friend wants this and you're doing this. So let's just kind of connect you. And other than that, like what you did was you kept being in events, regardless of how tired you are, regardless of how you're really feeling at the moment. You still went to them and you still talked to new people as well as a note. That's really important. So how about in Boston? Like what type of events are there? Are there some really good events that people just don't know about? What are some good places to get like startup events and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, if you know where to look, you can find multiple events on multiple nights throughout the week. One of the ways that I start my week is I go to all of my go-to places where I find events. So I always, at the beginning of the week, either on a Sunday evening or a Monday morning, is I'm checking out the local Luma links, what's going on in Boston within AI, fintech, cyber, health tech, climate tech, and just perusing that list, registering for events. There's also Market AI. So the founder of Market AI has a social account where he actually will put together a list of all of the tech events that are happening in Boston, all the tech networking events. So that's also a really helpful resource. Another really great way to find out what's going on within Boston, within like the founder funder community, is just signing up for newsletters for VC funds. There are a bunch of firms that will host events. And if you sign up for their newsletters, you'll get updates on the investments that they're making. So you're still able to see like what's happening in the ecosystem, but they'll also say like, "Hey, we're having an open house," or "Hey, we're having a mixer on this day." So that's one of the ways that I stay connected. But also, once you go to one event, you get invited to other events. And as people see you, they'll invite you to events. Mendoza hosted a um, an Impact Social. We called it the Impact Social event during Startup Boston Week, which was an official side event. And at that event, I think I got invited to two other events that are happening this week. So as you're out in the ecosystem, you'll meet people, you'll find common ground with folks. And that's just like a way to continue to grow your network.
Yeah. Consistently be there and just
Mhm.
tell people that you want to go to more events. That's what
Yeah.
it really is.
And if can't find an event, or, there's an event that or a space that you aren't finding and you really want to, find that space, create your own space. I know tons of founders who either, want to meet a specific type of person, whether they're looking for a very niche type of investor or they're looking for a co-founder. They'll go out into the world just like an entrepreneur will, with all of their grit, and they'll create the event themselves, and they'll go out and they'll find a venue and they'll find sponsorship. So there's always an opportunity to not only find a space, but if there is no space, create it.
And it really goes back to what Amber says is that when you're in all these communities as well, you can find a bunch of different people and use that to create your own type of community. That way you can create like so much more events that is really exclusive to your niche that you want. So what trends are you seeing that you're really excited about in venture capital?
One of the things that, and this goes back to my health and wellness background, I really, really am interested in wearable tech and using metrics for folks to really be able to take control of their health and wellness. One of the companies that is Boston based that I admire so much is Whoop, because there have always been fitness trackers. And some folks will say that the market is so oversaturated with the Apple Watches and the Fitbits and the Aura Rings. But I feel like one thing that Whoop does so well is it puts an emphasis not only on the movement, but also on the recovery and the strain and all of these other metrics that sometimes will fall by the wayside when you're thinking about fitness tracking, because people want to know how many calories they're burning and how hard their workout was. But I guess the inverse of that is you need to know what it is that your body's doing when it's recovering. Did you get enough sleep? So that's one of the trends that I'm really, really excited about. And I can't wait to see how that grows and what the new developments in that are.
And it's so legit. Like right now, I think recently didn't Aura like literally raise like so much money and now it's valued at like 11 billion. It's Aura rings where it's basically they just track your fitness, they just track your health, and that is already worth $11 billion in just one company. So across like all of the companies, that is trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. So I am really, really excited as well to see where it will go. And I think you're gonna lead the charge, really, truly, in Boston. I know you talked a bit about how to break into VC. For our MBAs, what is a 6-month plan that you recommend to really fully break into maybe even a VC fellowship or VC career?
Yeah, I would say one of the main things that you have to do is you have to stay curious and you have to stay vigilant. One of the things that a GP said at a conference that I went to that is so, so true is no one is going to hand you a job in VC. You really have to know what it is that you're doing. You have to know what your personal thesis is. You need to know how to talk to people in the rooms and you need to know how to navigate the space. One of the, I feel, the not easiest ways, but one of the ways that is will help you break that barrier of entry is through VC fellowships. There are a ton of really great fellowships across the country. I would be doing myself and Mendoza a disservice if I didn't chat up the Mendoza Fellowship. One of the things that I've really, really valued about my fellowship at Mendoza is you are doing the work. It is the best way to learn the space is really being thrown in. And the GPs are so supportive, but they will also make sure that you are thrown in, you're doing the work, you're talking to the people. And I really, over the course of my fellowship, I came out on the other side feeling very prepared going from, what is a cap table at the beginning of my fellowship to really feeling like I am ready to take that next step in my career. And some of the things that I was able to achieve within that very short period of time. How many MBA students can say, yeah, I allocated $250,000 to my first startup before graduation? How many people can say, yeah, I became a limited partner in a $100 million fund? So I think it's really, you have to stay curious, learn, spend as much time as you can just soaking up information. I really did. I mean, I was really interested in it. It's very exciting for me. So I live and breathe venture now. I also love to think about the founder's journey. So I did a lot of reading and research into, how founders think, how they operate, and that's really, I feel like, given me a leg up within the venture space. Staying up to date on the trends and the patterns that are happening within the industries that you're interested in investing in. And network, network, network. Talk to people, get out into the ecosystem, talk to founders, talk to other funders, talk to operators, and really see how all of these folks kind of play together in the ecosystem. So I say month one, do your research, figure out where you want to land because, VC is very broad and it can be broad. There are funds that are, industry agnostic, but if there is a focus or something that you're interested in or something that you have a background in, your research and see, which funds you're interested in. And then I would say month two, start applying to fellowships, start applying for, scout fellowships, anything like that. I would say month three, make sure you are ingrained into your local ecosystem, whether it be through events, going to panels, going to conferences. By month four, having done all of that networking, you should definitely have one or two people that are, very seasoned within the ecosystem who will go to bat for you. I think that that's one of the things that has been so important in my journey is that I have a really strong network of people who are looking out for me. They will vouch for me. They know the work that I can do. And then I say month 4 and 5, continue to foster those relationships, continue to network and make yourself somewhat of a thought leader. It's really, really easy to publish anything these days, whether it's through LinkedIn, whether it's through, Twitter posts, through blog posts, make yourself an expert, become an expert in the industries that you want to work in and in the spaces that you want to work in, and really use that opportunity to, leverage a personal brand so that when people say your name, they know what they associate you with.
Yeah, and I know you're being like really humble by saying that it's just your team who kind of supports you, but like you must have worked like so hard, right? Like literally, you mentioned that you didn't know what a cap table was at the start, and now you know like literally everything. So now that we know so much about you, what is one fun fact about you that most people don't?
Fun fact about me, one fun fact, most people don't know that I am an amateur photographer. So one of the things that I did I feel like everyone had their pandemic thing, like people were making bread or people were knitting. My thing was I need to get out of the house and I need a creative outlet. So I bought a camera. And one of the things that I really became passionate about was going out into the world, taking photos, being able to story tell through photos. And that's one of the things that it's still really near and dear to my heart. I am really looking forward to the fall where I can go up to Vermont and really get some beautiful photos of the foliage. And it's going to be a great time.
That was amazing. For anyone
Yeah.
listening who wants to learn more about you or even Mendoza, what's the best place to reach you? LinkedIn, email?
Yeah. You can definitely send me a message on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions, I'm always open to, chatting and expanding my network and learning about the things that make other people excited. So drop me a note.
Yeah, and I'll put her information in the description below. Out of everyone you know, who are two amazing VCs that you would recommend as future guests to our podcast?
Let's see. I got to shout out my fellow Mendoza fellows. One really great VC. Her name is Jossie Rodriguez Harrington. She is a VC out of New Jersey. And then I'll shout out Melissa Balak. She is also another amazing investor from Babson, and she is a VC out of Montreal. Both
Awesome.
Former Mendoza fellows, and really great people.
They sound amazing. Thank you again. And thanks to everyone who's listening. Comment a question you want to hear from our next guest or Aymbre. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to press the subscribe button, like, and share it with someone who's interested in getting into venture. We'll see you next time on Break into VC.